Well, a new old car we're going to talk about right here. Stay tuned next. Well, here we are. Here is my new, well, somewhat new, 2017 Buick LaCrosse. And you may be saying, well, what in the world is this doing on the channel? This is rare classic cars in automotive history, and this isn't rare. It's not classic. Well, I guess you could say it's kind of rare. They're pretty hard to find now. It's certainly not classic, but hang on one second here, because if you are looking for a car of, let's say, the relatively modern era that kind of has some of the characteristics of yesteryear, well, here you have it, the 2017 Buick LaCrosse. Now, I needed a new vehicle, or a newer vehicle, let's just say, to drive back and forth. I put lots of miles on per year. And so my objective here was to get something that was the most comfortable, quietest, roomiest car that I could, obviously for the best price, because I'm a finance person. And my trusty XT5 has been quite good to me, but it's got 135,000 miles, and I'm just kind of getting tired of it. And I don't really like crossovers. I like cars. And you can't find big cars anymore. This is kind of the last of the big cars. And this is, like I said, a 2017 LaCrosse, the first year of this generation. Now, the LaCrosse came out in 2005. I don't really care for that first gen model. It had a pretty squinty greenhouse. When you sit inside, it doesn't feel very spacious. But I actually like this one. At the time, I was working for General Motors, and I had one almost identical to this as a company car back when they first came in. Mine was white as well. White's not necessarily my favorite color, and it's not a pearl white. It's a non-metallic white, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, non-metallic, but still, I don't think it looks bad. Now, mine was the most expensive trim, all-wheel drive, with the 20-inch wheels, and this is, I think, one up from the base trim, and it's just a front-wheel drive, and it has the 18-inch wheels, and that was purposeful. Why is that? Because the 18-inch wheel cars ride better. It doesn't have the magnetic suspension damping, but I always thought that this car in base configuration rode better than the up-level one. They had stiffened the suspension, and despite the fact that it had the magnetic shocks, I just didn't think that it rode quite as well. But I always thought it was a handsome car. I do like the overall styling of it. I think that the taillights look nice. You know, you kind of got a little bit of a concave surface here on the decklet that gives it a little bit of dimension, not just completely flat. And you do have a nice little crease here. I guess some of my friends would say that's not a bone line, it's too sharp. Others could say that it is a bone line, but we'll just call it a crease or a feature line for now. And this one was especially clean. This was grandpa owned, has about 40,000 miles on it. Changed the oil every 3,000 miles or every 6 months. And I just thought it was local at a good price, and it was the front-wheel drive version. I don't want the all-wheel drive version, because if you need to be driving around in all-wheel drive, you shouldn't be driving, kind of is my philosophy. And I've never been stuck in a front-wheel drive car. But a handsome car nonetheless. These cars, if you're looking for something that, like I said, is absolutely quiet, this is it. And what do I mean by that? You've got triple sealed doors. You have this door seal that goes all the way around. And then you have another door seal that goes all the way around. And you have this upper kind of lip seal here on all of the doors, front and back. So notice you've got the triple seal again. So you're not going to get a lot of wind noise in this, also because the front is acoustic laminated glass. This is actually 2 panes of glass. I'll lower the window to show you. And a lot of cars have this nowadays. This is something you can tell. See how there's actually 2 little panes of glass there? And there's a little bit of a, I guess, like a separation in between. That's because that's laminated glass. You can turn the bonging off. And you can even say it says laminated on the windshield, or sorry, on the door glass, laminated right there. So that's another trick that these cars have to deaden the sound. And this car had the light interior, which I thought was nice. I like it a lot better than the dark interior. The seats are comfortable. You know, nowadays you can't get seats with any padding. These have padding. That's what I wanted. I'm driving long trips. Not great side bolstering, obviously, but you know what? Who cares? This does have the 3.6 liter V6 underhood, which we'll see in a second, making 310 horsepower. This is the later generation 3.6 liter engine, and by this point, it's quite reliable. The first one's had some timing chain issues and some other things like that, but this 3.6 liter engine is pretty bulletproof, and it has the Aisin 8-speed automatic transmission, which is effectively a Toyota transmission. So you've got your Toyota in your GM car. We'll start it up. And it's a 2017. It's hard to believe this car right now is going to be 8 years old before long. And the flickering that you see is not real. That's just what the phone is seeing. But you have nice gauges, nice set of gauges here, analog and digital. And you can, let's say, go through a bunch of readouts. Of course, you have Bluetooth. You can see that just connected. I'll turn the fan speed down here. But you have all the modern conveniences. The display is certainly small by modern era, but do you really need one of those huge displays on here? And I always thought that this interior was nice. I like kind of the dual plane instrument panel here. We've got the upper and the lower. And yes, that is full wood grain, but it looks convincing, and the stitching looks nice. The door panels are nice. The armrest is well padded. Again, try to find a well padded armrest. And the door armrests are well padded. The upper is padded. This is not a cheap door panel here. The only piece of hard plastic is this piece right here. The rest of it, everything else is soft touch. The lower is hard, admittedly, but I think it's quite luxurious. It has this terrible GM shifter that you got to go like this, up and over for reverse, which I'm not a fan of, but you get used to. Other than that, the button feel is quite nice in here. The headliner feels rich and luxurious. You do get lighted mirrors, so you can take a look at yourself easily. I would say the stereo system is okay, not great, not bad. This doesn't have Bose or anything like that, but it's a pretty nice stereo. And the great thing, like I said, about this car is that it's so comfortable. I mean, I'm about 6'1". I can sit in here. I've got my legs out. And the seating position is just so much better than so many modern vehicles. The seats in modern cars just stink. I don't know what they do to them. They don't have any padding. This one, as you saw, definitely has some padding. Now let's pop the trunk and take a look, because this car actually has a proper trunk, and I'll pop the hood too so we can take a look at that V6 underhood. That was the electronic parking brake, because I didn't turn the key off before I popped the hood. Yeah. You know, all these cars have so many electronics now. It's annoying. So let's take a look in the trunk. Actually, I'll show you this handy feature. I think they copied this from VW. You push this, and the trunk opens. Now you got a full trunk. And to show you the lengths that they went to with sound deadening, if you look kind of underneath here, see all that? That is sound deadening. So to make sure on the back side, on the underside of this trunk mat here, that's the length they went to on these Buick LaCrosses, and they are very quiet. I think they're about 65 decibels of interior noise at 70 miles an hour. I just love driving this car. Now here's a funny thing about this. You know what's under here? God, I hate this. The battery. That's where the battery is on these cars. And clearly, this is basically just so you can take it off. Take off the negative terminal here relatively easily. But to get the battery out, it's not a horrible job. You got to pull up on this trim piece, and then it just clips in, it comes out, and then you got to remove this fastener here and that fastener, and then pull this liner back, and then you can access the battery. This one's obviously been replaced at some point. And it looks like, not that long ago, 2023. So it's a couple years old, December of 2023. Hopefully that'll last me for a bit. These tend to last about 5 years nowadays, I find, especially on these auto start-stop cars, which this does have. But nicely lined trunk on the underside. There's a little grab handle here. Closes nicely. And remember, like I said, this has some of the sealant on here because these tires are brand new. This car still had the original tires when I got it. I put new Continental tires on it. Went to Discount Tire. They seem to have a good deal this week. So got brand new tires because I don't want to be driving on 10-year-old tires that don't have much tread. So this is the 3.6 liter V6. Like I said, this version that's in this LaCrosse, to my knowledge, is quite bulletproof. I've got that one, like I said, it's same engine and transmission in that XT5 over there. It's got 135,000 miles, never had a major issue, burns 0 oil in between the oil changes. I change the oil every 5,000 to 6,000 miles. I do it before the oil life monitor says that you need to do it. But, you know, the great thing about this is if you want to see, if you don't have any service records and you want to see how well maintained the engine was, you can look in here and you can even see the timing chain. See it there? Now this one might be a little hard to see, but there is absolutely no sludge in there anywhere. So it validates that the owner changed the oil very frequently. And when that's the case, these last a very long time. And I think they're pretty good engines. The front-wheel drive cars here too, I would say, they weigh less and they have less complexity. And if you don't need all-wheel drive, don't go for the all-wheel drive because it's just complexity and it's more, let's say, troublesome than if you just have the standard front-wheel drive model. And this engine, it's amazing. You have 310 horsepower. This is a relatively light car. These LaCrosses, when they came out, were about 300 pounds lighter than the previous generation, despite being bigger. So it's a pretty light car on the Epsilon 2 platform with the Impala. And this car will go 0 to 60 in about 5.8 seconds. So it's pretty quick. It's a quick car. I think it does about 100 miles an hour in under 15 seconds. So it's certainly no Tesla per se, but it's way faster than a bunch of the other stuff on the road. Yeah, they have they did a nice job in this era. GM's got good gaps and fits all the way around the car. Nice uniform gap, the trap hood. If you've been watching the channel, you know what that means. It's a well put together car, I would say. And you got a pretty spacious back seat. So the headroom isn't the greatest back here, I will admit. The LaCrosse, I think, has a lower roof line than the Impala. But there's certainly a lot of leg room. That front driver's seat is almost all the way back at the moment, and there's still plenty of leg room behind the driver. Again, nice door panel back here, too. Normally you find that automakers cheap out on the rear door panels, but all soft touch except this and the lower. Very nicely done. Good switch feel. And if you take the underside of this seat up, you'll also see more sound deadening in here. So it's just amazing. These LaCrosses, the Impalas were really nice, had a lot of the same features, but the LaCrosse took the sound deadening really to the next level. I do really like this crease here, and then how you got kind of have the sharp crease into a concave surface. Creates some nice reflections you can see as you go up and down in this area over here. Does have the capless fuel fill. Relatively early for that in 2017. Let's take it out for a drive on the road, and you can see what I mean about this being quiet. Thought I would just show you another piece of sound deadening on this, and that's the wheel liners here are like fuzzy cloth. That just absorbs sound, both front and rear. You'll find that nowadays some cars will do that on the front but not on the rear to save money, but it has it on both on this particular vehicle. Okay, so here we are out on the main road, and you really can't hear anything in this cabin. It's just great. There's a little bit of impact noise when you go over bumps, but again, I highly recommend if you're going to get one of these, find one with the 18-inch wheels. You will not regret it over the 20-inch wheels. It's just a much better ride, and I think that they tune the suspension a little bit softer. If you want a nice, smooth, cushy ride, which is exactly what I want. I do not care about sportiness, although this car handles just fine. It's no sports car, but the Epsilon 2 platform that GM had was a great platform, lightweight, independent rear suspension, four-wheel disc brakes. I mean, a lot of the modern stuff. And the V6 that's in here is also, quite smooth, I would say, and potent. You really don't have to worry about passing power at all. But again, I don't think that they don't make any cars like this. It's hard to find any sedans at all. And this one just has this wonderfully luxurious, quiet ride, which is exactly what you may want if you want something like an old car. No wind noise, almost no road noise, just a little bit of engine din in the background, and that's about it. I mean, it's just fantastic. I was going to get a Chevrolet Trax or a Buick Envista, and I was looking at the sticker prices for those, and they're relatively inexpensive for a modern car, but this came up for sale used, and I thought, geez, this is a lot of car for the money and a lot of life left in it, so why don't I buy this instead? I think and I wanted a car. I really don't want an SUV. And I have to say, I'm so pleased with it. Every time I get in it, I just love the multiple tone brown interior here with the light and the dark brown. If this were a black interior car, I definitely wouldn't like it as much. But it does look very nice, and I just love how quiet it is. I did drive a Chevrolet Trax, and I enjoyed it. I actually liked the 3-cylinder turbo engine, the 1.2 liter, and the conventional 6-speed automatic, which is what the Trax has. And I liked it, but had a little bit too much road noise on rough surfaces for me, and for somebody like me that drives long distances. And I thought, that might get annoying driving for hours. Around town, it's just fine, and on a smooth surface like this, it would be relatively fine. But this car, you drive on concrete, you drive on asphalt, you drive on rough asphalt, and it just doesn't matter. It's very, very quiet, and I think it's nice and well put together, and it's got some beams too. I mean, it pulls. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this little test drive of this 2017 Buick LaCrosse. If you want a modern car with all the modern car conveniences, it's kind of like an old car, get one of these.